everyone, it's Jen again. This week is going to be a development video. To be honest, I don't have a whole lot to show off because most of the visual groundwork had already been established as far as like sprite artwork went, and I think the last development video I was getting most of all the systems for tracking and assigning dialogue for the different locations set up. So really in this last like couple weeks it's been just a lot of writing. One thing that I kind of forgot about working on Arcane Dice Wars, and as opposed to working on like Gacha Date, and when I was working on I've transmigrated a Supreme Villainous game, which I feel like the story flow, the word flow is a little bit more similar in this game to that game. Like the dialogue in the dungeon is fairly straightforward, where there is some aspect of RNG to it, but that is very slight, and it's really still going and progressing in a very linear fashion. Versus the conversations that are happening within this portion of the game are situational, and the player can trigger these conversations by meeting certain criteria, mainly like unlocking that character's initial event by being in the right place in the right time and passing a certain stat check, a social skill stat check. And then the characters have like set schedules, but since right now there's like basically 3 different characters who are all in different locations, so to speak, their event triggers are in different locations every day, in the morning and the evening. It's kind of a lot, I think, for the player to try to keep track of, given how the travel system is 2 hours. So if you were trying to encounter all the characters and unlock all their events, I think it would be very tight and maybe possibly impossible to at least get all of their events. You might be able to unlock all the characters, like contact information, getting texts from them, and having the potential to run into them, but you probably wouldn't be able to pursue all 3 of them with all 3 of all their possible kind of like dialogue paths, where if you keep going to meet a certain character at a certain location at a certain time at a certain day of the week, running into them at that same location will progress like that particular conversation. So as I'm writing these conversations, it feels like I'm writing a lot, especially when you factor in player choice with that as well. But when I'm playing the scenario, it's like, oh, they talked for like a paragraph and then it's over. it's very quick. So from a development standpoint, it's a very inefficient way of writing or telling a story, is by having so much of the storytelling and dialogue being optional and being not in a set progression within its own individual context. They each have a little bit of progression, but in the broader context, most of the conversations don't trigger in a set order. So there's only so much that you can depend upon unless you create even more specific conditionals, which would make it even more difficult for the player to unlock that particular dialogue progression. So it's kind of been a delicate, I guess, like balancing act on making the text feel consequential and feeling like you're progressing the storyline and the character development, while also not making the rules so rigid that it would be difficult for a player to organically stumble upon these conversations. because already I think that it might be a little bit difficult for the player to stumble on the conversations, given that there's a good likelihood for them to stumble on a conversation if they just wait in a particular area. But whether or not this is the conversation they want, they might have to start keeping a spreadsheet like the one that I have of the character schedule so that they can be sure to continue to build that character if that's what they that character relationship if that's the one that they're aiming for. So at least if you unlock like one character at a particular location at a particular time on a particular day, they do have set schedules, so you will know how to progress that particular conversation if you can keep track of the day and whether it was morning or night. So yeah, it's interesting. I think I finally got the stat portion balanced because I do want the player to also be working on improving their battle stats so that I can properly balance the next enemy dungeon for the player to be at a certain stat threshold, because I do want to advance the character growth in that aspect as well. I don't want to have the enemies be at the same exact level as they were in the first game. So I have gone back and retuned some of that as well, which will make the first dungeon a slightly more forgiving for the new player as also, because I wanted to work with some nice round numbers, saying like, oh, okay, rank F is 100 total points, and then rank D, which was the protagonist goal for the end of this whole like 14 days social simulation portion of the game. That's their primary objective, is to raise 100 points so that they can rank up, or it's game over. So I don't want the player to fall too far behind with certain thresholds so that they get like stuck like 3 dungeons from now or something, being like, oh, I'm too weak, I can't possibly overcome it even with like the best strategy. Originally I wanted to give the player more freedom, but I realized that they could end up getting themselves in a irreversible kind of pickle that they might have invested a lot of time into. So better to, I think, have some built-in guardrails so that the player can stay within a certain track. And I would probably have to do something similar with that, with the kind of the social engagement as well. Given that there is the opportunity to build relationships with the characters, but like none of it is necessarily mandatory, it would be possible for the player to go through and just focus solely on training their stats and like and not trying to build any relationships with any of the characters. I feel like if that was your goal in playing the game is going to feel pretty empty and lacking interesting content, because that is where I'm putting like the vast majority of my energy towards, is towards the social interactions, even though they may seem short. It is taking me like 3 times as long to write those conversations as it was for me to just like set up the locations and draw the backgrounds and create like the point system and the time systems and all that, and the programming like that was all actually way faster to set up than writing these conversations and setting up the dialogue flow. This has been the more challenging part of creating this style of game. And I think maybe sometimes from a player standpoint, or even from a programming standpoint, if you don't write visual novels or RPGs or other types of games with a lot of story and character development, it's very easy to underestimate the sheer amount of time and focused time that it takes to work on that aspect. So it's definitely not for for somebody who doesn't like writing or who considers writing to be a weak spot, and that they don't have a lot of ideas for creating characters, creating worlds, and creating scenarios. I would say if you were just like kind of like turning to visual novel as being like an easy beginner programming experiment, that probably would be fine for making a really short experience for like,
Here it comes.
you know, something that you just play through a quick little game that would be like maybe 15-30 minutes long. But if you start delving into something that's a little bit more epic, it's a little bit more of like a full-size story, like I tend to do, not like I'm trying to pat myself on the back. I actually find it to be somewhat of a weakness of mine that it takes me so long to get to my point. And anything that I try to communicate, games, stories, whatever it is. I have tried short stories in the past, and they're just difficult for me for whatever reason. I'm just going all over the place, but I just wanted to tell everybody, rest assured, I've been working hard on writing, and the writing aspect has been taking me a long time, but I am starting to make a lot of headway, largely in thanks to the support that I've been getting from my playtesters. And yeah, so I wanted to put out a special thank you to Zach and to Just a One Girl for playtesting and giving me feedback and helping me fine-tune the point systems. It saved me, I think. I did have to go back and do some system level tweaks, so I do apologize in advance that for anybody who started a file, you will have to restart, because I did have to introduce some new objects to properly manage the tangled mess I was starting to make. And I think it was better to do it early on this time instead of getting 4 chapters in like I did with Arcane Dice Wars, where I kind of knew that I needed to make some foundational changes as the game was expanding and things were getting messier and messier, but I kind of put it off until I started working on Villain's Heart, and then when I started reworking that, I was like, oh gosh, I really need to go back and rework Arcane Dice Wars, which I'm super glad that I did, because I don't think it could have been the size that it was with just how messy the foundation was for it. So I'm really glad that I went back and I fixed that. And I thought that I was kind of setting myself up properly. We always think we do, with EXG and the extra time that I spent with playtesting and refining the first engine. And once I got to the whole start of really going in and creating all the dialogue for the exploring headquarters portion, the social simulator portion, I realized that I hadn't spent enough time building up the groundwork for that particular aspect of the game, and I was really gonna have to go back and tweak stuff. And because the combat stats are tied in with the social simulator portion, I had to go back and tweak that as well. So, as an apology, the first dungeon should be a little bit easier. You'll have 30 extra stats. The monsters also did get a slight boost, but they only got a boost of 10 stat points, so the player has a more clear-cut advantage over the enemies. Not so much that you can just steamroll them without any strategy, especially with Muse will still be able to possibly one-shot you if your RNG's bad. And you attack them when they're in their buff state. But other than that, it should be easier to get an S+ clear of the first dungeon. So yeah, hopefully that'll make it worthwhile of having to redo that portion. But if the player tries to play old play files, there will be broken parts because of certain objects that are tracking certain stats and certain player decisions that will have not been created at the start of that file. So again, apologize for that, but I appreciate your patience, and hopefully fixing it early on means that I don't have to do this type of a foundational change later on as I keep developing it. If I nip any problems that I can foresee in the bud this early on, then the chances of me having to go back and do something like this again would be more slim. So that's the lesson of the week. That's the lesson that I've learned, is that I really have to stop putting band-aids on things and just knuckle down and do it right. Even if that means having to undo stuff. It's a little bit scary, some of the stuff that I had to change, because I thought that it was going to be game breaking, and going through and changing all the things that were tied to the stats was going to be easy for me to make mistakes. But again, having the playtesters help me was a great encouragement, because I felt like I had more eyes on the project to be able to catch any of those little maybe little bugs that I created early on, and that they hopefully wouldn't fall through the cracks, which can sometimes happen when there's only one pair of eyes on the project. Which brings me to the last thing that I want to talk about today in this week's update, was that I do just really want to again thank the people who have been supporting me through this whole process of my making games. I firmly believe that you shouldn't wait for other people as a creator to get started. Maybe you have a weak spot. Maybe art is your weak spot, or music is your weak spot, or writing is your weak spot, or programming is your weak spot. I would say just do what you can and develop the skills, and don't ever be like waiting or dependent, or tell yourself I can't do that, or I need somebody in order to get started on this thing that I want to do. That's what solo development means to me, is that I don't wait around for someone else to rescue me. I just kind of take the steering wheel, and I drive ahead, and I know that it's not going to be perfect, and that I'm going to have weak spots, that hey, maybe if I had a team with an expert who was better at this stuff, then I could make a more finished product. But the older that I get, the less time I feel like I have to wait around. And overcoming weaknesses, and even if it's not like I'm not like the best at doing XYZ, there's still a sense of fulfillment in doing that process. Dabbling in being a jack of trades, I guess. I don't think there's any shame in that. And then you do have the overall strength of usually having a more cohesive vision at the end of it, because you kind of had your fingers in everything. I think that helps to control the vision and keep it focused, if you have a clear vision anyways. With that said, there has been talk in the creative spaces about how solo dev is really lonely. Certainly it's hard to get eyes on your project, and it's hard in real life and online to get feedback or engagement. Like, we're creating these experiences, and it's incredibly motivating and fulfilling to be able to have some type of engagement with another person, to look at your work, read your work, and to feel like I've communicated with somebody. This is why I'm doing this. This is what I've spent years working on. This project is so that I could communicate with somebody else, and not just like a random thumbs up or a random 5-star review, those things are also validating. But having somebody that you can actually know is engaged with what you're doing and can give you the type of feedback that says, I care about what you're doing. I care. Is so incredibly precious and valuable, and I'm not entitled to anybody's time. And again, I don't want to make what I do conditional on having that type of interaction with people to say, well, I didn't get any interaction, so I'm not going to do it, because it's just one of those things that you kind of have to put the horse before the cart. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the blood, sweat, tears, passion. And if you wait for some type of guarantee that you will have some sort of return, that somebody will care, then it never gets done. Oftentimes, creators have mountains of work that nobody so-and-so cared about before they have their breakout success, or if they ever have a breakout success, right? But maybe it's better to, in my mind, it's better to have tried and failed than to not have tried at all. And because it's my way of communicating, like, it's worth it to me to put that time and effort into it. So when somebody can respond to that, it's so valuable. I don't know how else to describe it as a creator. It's like a priceless treasure. So that's another reason also why I have been wanting to share some Renpy Let's Plays online. It's because I recognize how valuable that is to me, and I want to help facilitate that for other creators too, even if it's just my one little channel that doesn't get that much engagement or that many views. I think that, I don't know, I just can't put the value of what that means to me in words. So I feel like if maybe I can put it a little bit through actions. But maybe that's also one of the things I think maybe people have been forgetting about, or getting caught up in numbers and ratings and views and likes, that I want those who are engaging with the content, engaging with the games, to understand how valuable creators, no matter how big they are, how valuable their engagement is. At least to me, I mean, I guess I have to say that caveat with everything. And like, I don't know how, I can't speak for everyone, but I know how valuable it is to me, and I can't help but think I'm a human being that shares human being qualities with other human beings, and it must be it must be valuable to other creators too. So again, I just want to thank you to those who have engaged with my work, who have taken the time to try my games, and to open some type of communication with me. It means a lot to me, it really does. And I want to give a special thank you to Just a One Girl, Zach, Lemon, Jade. Want to give you guys a special extra thanks for supporting my work and supporting me. I mean, I feel cared for. Thank you. And thank you to anyone who's watching this video. And
Here
Yeah,
it
to the other
comes.
creators out there, you can't force this type of engagement. It just happens when somebody magically stumbles upon your work that your work was made for. And sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you're lucky and you may get that type of response on your first go. But for most of us, I think it is. It's something like winning the lottery, and it feels really special, and you can't rely on it. You can't contain it. You can't force it. You can't trap it. You just have to appreciate it for what it is in that moment. And yeah, I'm just I feel very fortunate to have had those interactions, and hope you guys have a good week going forward. Don't forget to enjoy the process.